All right, let's just jump right into this explainer and completely shatter basically everything Hollywood has taught you about the rulers of ancient Egypt. Seriously, when we think of a pharaoh, we usually picture this giant golden statue, a mysterious mummy, or maybe just some dramatic ruler lounging on a throne, eating grapes while laborers build pyramids out in the blazing sun. But the actual reality, it was without a doubt one of the most physically demanding, highly regulated, and insanely stressful jobs in the ancient world. The contrast here is just wild. We're not talking about a king. We're talking about a living, breathing God on earth. The literal, physical incarnation of Horus in life and Osiris in death. So his daily, exhausting routine was not about lazy luxury at all. It literally kept the universe from collapsing. Every single minute of his day was meticulously scheduled just to prevent a total cosmic disaster. Because look, every single action the pharaoh takes today, from the second he wakes up to the moment he goes to sleep, is a literal battle between two massive cosmic forces. On one side, you have Ma'at, which is truth and cosmic order, and on the other side, Isfet, which is just total chaos and destruction. If the pharaoh failed his daily duties, the Nile wouldn't flood, the crops would fail, and the sun itself might not even rise. So, absolutely no pressure, right? All right, Section 1, Morning Purification and Rituals. Let's see exactly how a living God gets ready to face the universe before the sun is even up. The pace is just absolutely relentless, right out of the gate. At 5 a.m., the pharaoh opens his eyes in the dimly lit palace. And he doesn't wake up on a soft feather pillow, nope. He sleeps on a curved wooden headrest carved with the fierce dwarf god Bez. Now, this wasn't just a practical way to keep his neck cool in the heat. It was literally designed to protect his soul from demons while he slept. So from the absolute second he wakes up, he hits the ground running. And he doesn't just roll out of bed and grab breakfast. He is instantly swarmed by an army of highly specialized courtiers. I know titles like the Director of the Royal Loincloths sound completely hilarious to us today, but back in ancient Egypt, physical proximity to the king was absolute power. Holding a title like that meant you were a high-ranking noble who actually had the private ear of the king before his official day even started. You were the one hearing his raw, unfiltered thoughts. Think about the sensory overload going on here. Every single detail, from the scraping of the bronze razor to the sheer weight of that golden collar, was a highly calculated move to transition him from a mortal man into a purified, untouchable god. In the House of the Morning, he's washed with natron, which is a natural salt, to strip away sweat. He's shaved entirely bald, mainly because hair was seen as wild and barbaric. And that sick black kohl eyeliner, that wasn't just for dramatic effect. It actually blocked the blinding desert glare and kept flies from giving him eye infections. Finally, the beeswax-coated wig, the massive gold wesek collar, and the uraeus, that golden rearing cobra, are placed right on him. Then, by 6:30 a.m., he arrives at the great temple of Amun-Ra. Picture him walking past these towering stone pillars, going deep into the darkest, most exclusive sanctuary where ordinary citizens could literally never step foot. He breaks the clay seal on the wooden shrine of the supreme god, and the pharaoh utters this incredible cosmic declaration: "I have not come to destroy, I have come to establish Ma'at in place of Isfet." He's basically proving his ultimate purpose to the universe right then and there. And the actions he takes next are so incredibly precise, and the stakes are just sky high. Inside that shrine sits a small, solid gold statue, but to the Egyptians, it wasn't just art, it was the actual physical container for the god's spirit. So treating this solid gold statue exactly like a beloved child was strictly necessary to coax the god's spirit down from the heavens to bless Egypt for another day. He washes it, burns sweet kaifi incense, dresses it in fresh, colorful linens, and presents this massive feast of roasted beef and sweet figs. Moving right along to Section 2, Ruling the Black Land. So the heavens are satisfied, the sun is safely rising, and at 9:30 a.m., we step into the grand audience hall, where the pharaoh faces the crushing administrative burden of the ancient world. This is where he basically acts as the ultimate ancient CEO. His right-hand man, the vizier, brings him up to speed on the literal lifeblood of the nation, the Nile water levels. If the water is too low, they face starvation. Too high, and whole villages wash away. And he has to quickly pivot from calculating grain taxes to receiving foreign diplomats from the Hittite and Babylonian empires, trying to balance delicate trade deals for timber and silver using these heavy cuneiform clay tablets. And right after that, he sits as the supreme judge, handing down terrifying, swift justice for high treason. I mean, the mental agility required for this is just staggering. Finally, at 11:30 a.m., he gets a tiny breather. He retreats to a private garden courtyard filled with blue lotus flowers to eat a massive breakfast. While the peasants are out eating coarse bread and dried fish, the pharaoh dines on roasted waterfowl, honey-sweetened pastries, and sweet pomegranate juice, sitting alongside his great royal wife. But honestly, even with this breathtaking culinary display right in front of him, the heavy responsibility of the crown never actually leaves his mind. All right, section 3, warrior, builder, and hunter. Let's head into the scorching afternoon heat where the pharaoh has to completely shift gears to prove his sheer physical perfection and secure his legacy for eternity. So it's 1 p.m. and he hits the dusty training grounds. There is absolutely no room to be a soft, sheltered royal here. He steps onto a lightweight wooden chariot, which, by the way, was basically the Bronze Age equivalent of an F-16 fighter jet. And he doesn't just ride in the back, he drives the thing himself at a full gallop. He ties the leather reins tightly around his waist so his hands are totally free. Then he pulls back a massive, super heavy composite bow and shoots arrows completely through solid copper targets. This insane display of skill proved to his observing generals that he literally possessed superhuman God-given strength. By 3 p.m., covered in dust, he heads out to the colossal construction sites of his temples. He's out there inspecting the stonemasons, making sure his hieroglyphs are carved deeply enough that future rival kings can't easily erase his legacy. And contrary to what the movies tell us, these workers were actually paid professionals, not slaves. The pharaoh personally had to make sure their beer and bread rations arrived on time, because if he didn't, they would literally strike. And a labor strike disrupting his eternal monuments was the last thing he could afford. Then, as that intense heat finally starts to break around 5 p.m., he takes to the marshy edge of the Nile for the royal hunt. Balancing on a pretty fragile reed boat, he uses a wooden throwing stick to knock wild birds right out of the sky. And why does this even matter? Because bagging a duck in the chaotic marshes wasn't just some fun sport. The wild marshes represented Isfet, the forces of disorder. So every single bird he brought down was this highly symbolic spiritual victory, physically taming the wild forces of nature on behalf of human civilization. That brings us to section 4, evening banquets and games. The sun finally sets and the physical heavy lifting of the day is done. But if you think he finally gets to clock out and relax, think again. The political and spiritual maneuvering is just getting started. At 7:30 p.m., the palace is glowing with bronze torches, and the pharaoh hosts a grand royal banquet. It is just a total sensory overload. You've got blind harpists playing, dancers performing. The air is just thick with the smell of roasting meats. The guests even wore these wax cones made of scented myrrh and lily right on top of their heads. And as the evening heat melted the wax, it continuously cooled and perfumed them. It's so clever, right? Without the internet or phones, this vibrant, incense-filled dinner table was exactly where the real political deals were struck, and crucial kingdom gossip was gathered. By 10 p.m., the guests have finally cleared out, and the pharaoh sits in a quiet corner with his great royal wife for a game of Senate. Now, it looks like a simple 30-square board game of luck and strategy, but playing this wasn't just about kicking back and unwinding. The board actually represented the terrifying hazards a soul would face on its way to the afterlife. So playing Senate was essentially a nightly rehearsal for eternity, a quiet, sobering reminder that even as a living god, his earthly life was only temporary. And finally, section 5, the eternal night shift. Let's see how all of this builds to the absolute craziest twist of this explainer. What happens when the guy actually goes to sleep? So it's 11 p.m., the daily cycle is closing, the pharaoh is washed of that thick coal makeup, he's stripped of his heavy golden collars, and he lays his head back down on that hard wooden headrest of Bes. The palace goes completely dark, the heavy doors are guarded, and his physical exhaustion has reached its absolute peak. But here's the thing, his duty doesn't stop. Not spiritually. Even in his sleep, the pharaoh is literally fighting a cosmic war. According to Egyptian belief, when the sun set, the sun god Ra traveled through the dark underworld, which they called the Duat. And the pharaoh's spiritual double, his Ka, travels right alongside Ra, offering his strength to fight off glowing demons and the giant chaos snake Apep, just to make sure the sun can actually rise again tomorrow. He really was the ultimate glue holding their entire civilization together. He had to be a man, a king, a general, a high priest, and a god all at exactly the same time. If he failed this relentless 24-hour cycle of order, the Egyptians truly believed the Nile would dry up, the temples would fall silent, and the entire world would just dissolve into total chaos. So really think about that unbelievable burden the next time you picture ancient Egypt. It wasn't a life of passive luxury. It was the ultimate, never-ending test of endurance. Knowing everything we just covered, Could you handle the weight of the entire universe on your shoulders every single day? If this explainer changed your perspective, be sure to keep exploring the fascinating realities of history with us, and I'll see you in the next one.
Please like and subscribe.